We're going to start with the stability ball. The stability ball is one of my favorite pieces of equipment. It's very inexpensive and it's very multifunctional. You can add it to any yoga or Pilates practice, and for some exercises, it's going to make things more challenging. For other exercises, it will make things easier. Now, I meet a lot of people who have purchased a stability ball, but most people tell me it's still in the box in a closet because they're not sure exactly what to do with it. So my intention here in the next few minutes is to give you the top tips you need to know to start using your stability ball safely and effectively. First and foremost, if you're new to the stability ball, I would suggest you wear shoes when you're doing it. Now, I've practiced on the stability ball for 10 plus years, so I'm used to going barefoot now. But for newbies, shoes are going to give you a little extra support and a little extra stability. Secondly, I want to show you how to get on the ball safely. So I'm going to stand up here. What I see a lot of people do is they try to kind of maneuver it like this. Instead of doing that, what's much easier, much safer, and a little more elegant is if you put a finger right here, step in front of it, and then take a seat. Now, a huge thing you want to be aware of when you're working on the stability ball is whether or not the ball is the right size for you. Stability balls come anywhere from 55 centimeters all the way up to 85 centimeters. And when you're purchasing one, you're going to want to look on the box or online where it asks your height. And depending on your height, that's how you know how big of a ball you want. Now, with that being said, you still want to bring it home and test it to make sure. So what I mean by that is once you blow it up, when you sit down on it, you want to make sure your hips are either level with your knees or slightly above your knees. If your knees are above your hips, that's going to make most of the exercises kind of awkward, and it's also not going to be as functional. There seems to be a big discrepancy between brands. So some 65 centimeter balls are going to be smaller than others depending on the brand. So you're going to have to guess first depending on the chart that that particular company has on their box or online, and then you'll have to inflate it and see what happens. So once again, you want to, as you're sitting on it, make sure your hips are either level with your knees or slightly above your knees. For most people, 65 centimeters is a great place to start. A lot of people also ask me about weighted stability balls, and I think either doing weighted or unweighted is fine. I typically lean towards the unweighted because the reason there's weights in the ball is so it doesn't roll around. So it works great if you are using it in this way in a seated position. However, you can use the ball in many different ways, lying down between your feet, you can have it between your hands, you can bring it up against the wall. And sometimes if it's weighted, that makes things a little more awkward. So if you really want it to be multifunctional, then I would suggest unweighted. In regards to inflation, a general rule of thumb you want to be aware of is that the more you inflate your ball, the more challenging the exercises will become. The less it's inflated, most exercises become easier. And that's simply because you have less surface area on the ground when it's more inflated and more surface area to support you when it's less inflated. Now, it's an important thing to realize that the purpose of the ball is to create an unstable base, forcing your muscles to have to activate in order to keep you stabilized. So simply sitting on the ball like this activates the muscles. So it's a great thing if you're watching TV or you're working at your desk to replace your chair with a stability ball from time to time just to get things working. When you are sitting on the ball, you want to pay attention to two things. First and foremost, where your center of gravity lies. So let me give you an example. If I were to turn here and sit right on top of the ball or start to go back, I'm going to begin to feel really unsafe. So I always make sure that my center of gravity is a little bit forward. That makes me feel more in control. On a similar note, you want to pay attention to where your feet are. If your feet start to come back towards the ball like this, again, that's going to make you feel unsafe. So the worst case scenario is when your feet come towards the ball and your center of gravity goes back, then you feel like you're losing control. If you can keep your feet forward and your center of gravity forward, you're going to feel much more confident. When you're working on a stability ball, whatever's in contact with the floor is considered your base. So right now, my feet are my base. If I was lying on the ball with my stomach in contact with the ball and my hands on the floor doing some leg work, then my base would be my hands. An important rule of thumb to be aware of is the wider your base, the easier an exercise becomes. The more narrow your base is, the more challenging an exercise becomes. Another important tip to keep in mind is that you can always bring your arms out to a T if you are feeling unstable. So whenever your arms come out to a T, that's going to help you balance. You can even bring a chair over or bring yourself close to the wall so you can actually be in contact with something stable when you're first starting. That can just give you a little extra confidence as you work into your stability ball practice. The other adaptations you can utilize on the stability ball are similar to those in yoga and Pilates. For example, the bigger your range of motion with your movement, the more challenging an exercise becomes. Secondly, the faster you move, typically that makes things more challenging as well. And finally, the more limbs you get involved, that makes it harder for your core to stabilize. So again, that makes it more challenging. So as you're moving through your stability ball practices, you can tailor your workout to what you need depending on those adaptations. I have an entire library of stability ball workouts, so you can really see how effective and how versatile this piece of equipment is. I'm just going to give you a tiny little taste of the variety and the ability to adapt here, so you get an idea of what you have to look forward to. So I'm going to start here with a simple bouncing. So a cool thing about the stability ball is you can get some cardio work in without putting a lot of pressure on your joint. So it's a low impact cardio workout. So as I'm bouncing here, I can choose how far apart my feet are. So if my feet are wider, this is going to make me feel more stable, and it's going to make things a little easier. If I bring my feet closer together so that my base is more narrow, now I have to utilize my muscles a bit more in order to stabilize. Another thing I could do is bring my arms out to a T to help me balance. As I pick up the speed and make the movement bigger, this is going to make things more challenging. Now, this bouncing is awesome. It gets your lymphatic fluids moving. Your lymphatic fluids are the basis of your immunity. So when you can get your lymphatic fluids moving, your immunity skyrockets. Additionally, bouncing like this is recommended by many physical therapists to help with back issues, because what you're doing is training the muscles between your vertebrae to really support and stabilize you. Now, if you wanted to take things up a notch, you could even begin doing jumping jacks. And once again, the bigger your movement, the faster you go, the more challenging the exercise becomes. If you wanted to just do it with your legs, you could do that. So the less limbs you have involved, the easier it is. The more limbs you have involved, the more challenging it becomes. You could even do some bounces in between if you're just starting with this. So 3 bounces in between, and then out and in. So there's so many different ways to tailor this. One thing that I'm really keeping in mind, especially as I'm moving in this way on the ball, is again, my center of gravity and my feet. So if I were doing jumping jacks and my feet and my center of gravity start to move back, I would stop and move forward again to gain more control. Now, in a seated position, you can do so many more things. You can do crunches, you can do balancing, you can even do stretching. Let me show you that one really quick. If you move forward and reach back, this is like a supported bridge in yoga. So as you can see, so many awesome options on the stability ball. I really hope that you take some time to check out my stability ball workouts. I think you're going to have a ton of fun with them and find that they're very effective. Once you know how to use the ball, they're also very safe.